I'm here to talk to you about cloud governance and decentralized architectures. And when I talk about decentralized architectures, I'm talking about blockchain decentralized architectures. I'm really glad to be presenting here today at the Apidays, Helsinki. And let's hope that the weather is fantastic, which I'm sure it's going to be. A bit about me. I'm Dylan Best. I work in technology, strategy, and transformation at Deloitte. And my history has been I come from a technical infrastructure, and I work in cloud and cloud transformation at Deloitte, amongst other things such as transformational advisory. I am South African, although I call myself an Australian prior to moving to sunny Finland. My hobbies involve kite surfing, yes, in Finland, and DJing. Feel free to check me out there or add me on Instagram. There's my LinkedIn address there as well, but also have the QR code, and I made it sure that it was very big so that it's easy to actually use the QR code, because sometimes I struggle to get the QR code, when you're trying to take it over the top of somebody's head at a conference and then you're disrupting the person behind you. So hopefully this makes it easy. Feel free to add me there on LinkedIn for any questions or conversations or anything else you would like to discuss. So a bit of a preface here. The geek level for this presentation is somewhere between your grandparents that can't use Apple TV without calling you on the left, and then on the right, dudes that wear vintage video game t-shirts. While I've been a bit of both, this presentation tends to be more to the left. So a little bit simpler and not so technical. I still think there's a wealth of information that is worthwhile hearing. So a bit about Deloitte. You probably know a little bit, but just in case, we're one of the world's leading professional services firms and network. We focus on things like audit and assurance, consulting, financial advisory, risk advisory, and tax and legal. I sit in the consulting department doing technology strategy and transformation, and I'm mainly focused on cloud advisory, and cloud transformation. Globally, we have over 400,000 employees, so quite a big organization. We're based in over 150 countries. Then if we localize things a little bit more, we'll see that we have a Deloitte office in Finland, which is where I'm based. I have previously been based in Melbourne, Australia, so I have a bit of a worldly experience in that way. And in Finland, we have about 700 employees, and that number is always growing. So that's exciting to see, because the opportunities and what we're doing just is endless, really. I feel like that we're doing very effective and work that is needed. The average age in our office here, I think, is about 34 years old. Then a bit on the Deloitte cloud practice. So we deliver cloud services globally, and we do that across strategy, architecture, implementation, and operations. And we feel like our global network, it gives us the ability to offer a flexible delivery model. And it's enabling us to serve you, our clients, and the markets and the geographies. And we could tailor the needs for each of our clients in those different varying geographies. And we can do that at a very effective offering. We have over 50,000 cloud practitioners, so that's a great amount. 12,000 cloud certifications across the globe. We have a lot of countries that we serve. We have global delivery centers, so that enables us to serve you in a very efficient and effective manner while maintaining a presence in the local member firms, in the local geographies and regions. We can still offer very deep subject matter expertise. We also have a premier ecosystem of partners that we work with in terms of AWS, Google, Oracle, and Alibaba. We're not a direct partner with Microsoft, but we do work with them. So what I wanted to talk to you today about was Deloitte's Tech Trends report. It's in its 14th year, and I feel like every year it just keeps getting better and better and better. This report demonstrates the technological trends that we feel are going to be important to know about in this year, right? And then the next few years. And that helps you to plan and get ready for those trends that are coming. One thing that I found very interesting about this report is, for instance, this amazing image that you see, this big brain with these metallic connections. We actually used generative AI. And when we use generative AI, we use prompts like ideas that like history informs the future, trusting our inorganic colleagues, mechanical minds, right? And actually this report came out before the big generative AI explosion that we see in the public and the media right now, even though we know that AI has been an evolution. So what I love about the imagery is that it feels like AI has an interesting mix of mirrors and ghosts, and it's like reflections of ourselves as humanity. And I think the thing that I take away from this is that we as humans have control over the technology and the direction that we want to go in the future in terms of where the trends are going. So these are things that we are doing, not things that are being done to us. Sometimes it feels like we don't have the power. We do have the power. We just have to make the change. So for the report, I wanted to go into a bit of a history about how the report came to be, a bit of a history of where it was, and that gives a history of the future, right? So it frames the way that we're thinking about what is new now and next. It's the right way to look at emerging tech trends in the future. We need to look back. We need to understand the journey we've been on by looking back to make a trend line to the present and to the future. Let's take a look at this slide for a minute. This is a slide on how not to understand the future, right? 3 to 4 years ago, we used to bring this to our clients and we talked to them. And the truth is, nobody really enjoyed it. It's a blizzard of buzzwords. For instance, you look here and you might see things like anamorphic computing, exoskeletons. Sometimes too much is too much, right? So it's very difficult to comprehend and make heads of tails. And we realized this, right? So we took this and we've evolved the Technology Trends Report to make it simpler, usable, more readable, easier to understand. And we have some fantastic slide graphics here in the presentation. And what is this? Well, you might say, is it a loom? Is it a printing press? No, it's none of those. It's a computer. It's Mike Bechtel, one of the creators of the Technology Trends Report. He came up with this idea when he was at a summit one day. He saw this machine sitting there. He thought, well, what is this? And it is a representation of the past. It helps us look into the future for the trends that have been into the past. And you know when this was invented? It was invented over 175 years ago. And no, the first computer wasn't invented by Alan Turing. It was, in fact, Charles Babbage. So this is a mechanical computer. And like today, it has a lot of similarities. It has a reader. So a reader allows to be intuitive and sensible in the way of you inputting to get an output, right? It has a database or storage. And in the mechanical sense, it had a silo storing numbers or grains or holding the grains. And then you had a mill, something to crunch the numbers, to do the computation, to do the work. Wheat into flour, for instance. Similarly, we can link this to today. We have a user interface on our computers or our laptops, on our screens. We have a database or storage. And at the same time, we actually have a CPU that's doing the work. Quite exciting to see where we've come from. Now, if we move away from this 5-ton behemoth and into a brief history of the future. Once again, we have some very nice slide graphics expanding out here for us. And you can see on the left, you have the eternities, the things that continue to exist through time, that interaction, right? The user interface, the information, the storage of the databases and the computation, the work, the CPU. All of those things link to the end game. So we created 3 tracks, and they're aligned to the interaction of information and computation. And what I mentioned earlier about is that computing has been an evolution, not a revolution, along these 3 tracks, right? So if you look at what we have here, we have Charles Babbage's design on the left, 175 years ago, somewhere around there, years ago. You had that very simplistic design. But then as things have progressed, we had PhDs and we had floors of computers. Then we had command lines in the mid 20th century, relational databases. Then we had the 25 years ago graphics user interface. I remember the first days of Windows 3.1 and how far we've come actually. Then you had analytics and client server models. Now we have more recently mobile devices and predictive analytics and cloud architectures. So interfaces have gotten simpler. And at one point we thought maybe, well, would Moore's law still apply? It does. We got to some very small physical sizing and we're starting to hit some challenges there, but then along came virtualization. Things continue to evolve and get more challenging and more intelligent and abundant. These tracks have endured, and every IT system that's worth its salt has been about simple interactions, more intelligent information insights, and more abundant number crunching. So what we decided to do is we created a framework, interfaces to get simpler, storage to get smarter, and stronger computation. This is the framework that we created, So elevating forces lifting us up, and then there's grounding forces that we need to pay attention to. Things like business of technology, cyber and trust, and core modernization. Things that you need to do to keep the lights on, right? So when you're going to work in the morning, you can know that the heating systems are still going to run. It's about tracking the trends of how we got to this 14-year timeline. Eyes to the sky to compute faster and interact better, but then conversely having those grounding forces to be led by the business need. So today I wanted to talk about two trends in the interest of time. I've only got about 25 minutes and I know I've used quite a bit of time already. So let's focus on the two here, one being computation and the other being cyber and trust, and more about trust. So for this trend, above the clouds, taming the multi-cloud chaos, I like to use an analogy. Back in the day when I used to sit with my brother and watch cricket on the television, it was quite simple. I would come home, push the power button, and I would choose a channel, and that was it. Didn't have to really think about anything else at that point. There was some underlying complexity, but most of that was managed already, in terms of electricity, environment, those types of things. Then came the evolution of cable television. With cable television came a bit more options and a bit more complexity. Then we realized that we had things like streaming services. And with streaming services, you have multiple options. You have multiple things to manage. You have to sign into multiple devices. You have to keep the applications updated. So it represents a lot of complexity. And I like to liken that to enterprise IT or the adoption of multi-cloud. So nowadays we have a lot of opportunity, but we have a lot of complexity with multi-cloud. The earlier days of cloud, they felt fantastic. They had lots of opportunities. You had multiple tools, sometimes redundant, even for cost efficiency. Your choices led to, but now the choices are leading to an increase of complexities. And that game when you sit at home and you think, what show should I choose today? And then you sit for 30 minutes and then, well, maybe you don't end up choosing something. And that is also that you have so many options that is also creating complexity. Anyway, anecdotes aside, the emerging story here is one of meta-cloud or super-cloud, coined by David Linthicum. So to this end, it appears to be a set of vendors that are starting to work along the lines of simplicity as a service, creating a dashboard, creating a view into your multi-cloud chaos. And the idea is there to get a single pane of glass, to have observability, and to bring sanity into your multi-cloud mess. So the idea here is controllability and sanity. I like to liken it to having one ring to rule them all, easily and powerfully and efficiently, without worrying about the potential for things going awry when you have something like Mount Doom. So you can see the main logic here that we're applying is through a set of APIs. You can then potentially create a central dashboard that integrates with your various cloud platforms. Now, multi-cloud is a tangled web. You have platform as a service. 85% or more of our customers have two or more cloud platforms. 25% of our customers say that they're using at least 5 or more cloud platforms. This represents holes in security, cost management issues, operational issues, right? Things that you need to think about. The new is simplicity as a service, sets of APIs, it's creating those guardrails and then regulations. That then ensures resilience, security, capacity, management, potentially integrated into a single and simple request. Right? You can use technologies and bundle in technologies like AI and security and application DevOps and create automation around those things. The other thing is that you can elevate your security posture. You have less access, right? Direct access, but more control. And there's potential for hackers to leverage one cloud versus another cloud. So in that way, you can reduce the breach of human failures. But there is a challenge. The challenge is the compatibility among providers. It's good for users, but maybe it's not so good for providers of cloud and cloud services. The idea might get rejected. So with that in mind, we believe that the next is the consolidation and centralization. The pros and cons of that are, you have the pros, which is simpler, it's more secure, it's easier to manage, but the cons are somewhat limited, but they might mean more bureaucracy. MetaCloud is probably the first step along a new ladder. Excuse me. The other things to think about is you need to consider the need to have the right level of governance, the right model for interactions, the right operations, the right operation automation, and then the supporting functions that are building into your operating model and your governance of cloud, such as architecture and cybersecurity. Those functions, such as also financial operations, built into your cloud and cost management and how you show the value back to the business. So you need to be able to implement that in a simple form. You also need to have the right framework to work from. That creates the technology that then enables the governance to work in the right way and work for your business. Right, so enough about Mount Doom and the one ring to rule them all. And by the way, these graphics that you're seeing continually through this presentation have, like I said, been created by generative AI. I think they are really amazing. Right, and the other trend I wanted to talk today about is decentralized architectures and ecosystems. And in us, we trust. It's in the wording there. This trend is based upon trust. It's less about cybersecurity at this point. Trust is sadly an issue in our society, and even between two parties, it's in decline. Sadly, even when you have a third party, it seems not even a third party is enough these days. Thus, we, they, and potentially unknown entities, they can stake a voice at our transactions or our interactions. So when you go online, for example, and you notice that people are saying negative things about an organization, this is demoralizing. It's bringing the trust levels down. There may be malicious actors, people pretending to be from an entity. Is it genuine? Where does it come from? How do you create that trust again as an organization, but also with the public and also with your fellow man? So the theme here is trust is being eroded. Trust is being eroded by things like generative AI, malicious actors manipulating the technology for their own personal gain. So if we go back a little bit, we had Web 1. Web 1, when you went onto a company's website, you saw the About Us. You thought, okay, well, that company, I've heard of them before, and I see the About Us, and I see they've been in operations for 50 years or whatever it may be. And that would be how you then learned that you were going to trust that organization. Web 2, you have things like Google reviews or YouTube reviews. But now we know that, when you go and you see a restaurant in the middle of the city and you see that it's 5 stars and maybe it has 10 reviews or 20 reviews or maybe 300 reviews, you know that there is a good potential that those reviews have potentially been bought or manipulated in some way, shape, or form. So now we know that we can't trust that without at least doing some digging into those reviews. Then we have Web 3, right? And that's leading into blockchain. So now we have Web 3 communities. which are, that these communities can now be weaponized. You've seen some of the things about cryptocurrencies and how there's been some manipulation there in terms of financials. Well, the option, the answer, we believe, in regaining that trust is blockchain. So now, to revert that trust erosion, we need to rebuild credibility. And we can do that through things like tokenization, simple tokenization, transparency on the blockchain, which is immutable. It's a ledger system. It needs consensus for entries to be made. It has a history and tracking and tracing. Organizations like Goldman Sachs and other financial institutions, they're tokenizing. They want to reduce bureaucracy. They want to reduce inefficient processes. They want to automate things like settlement costs through smart contracts. So there is a lot happening now. The new is the control of the data, the credentials. So, in this example here, we have the New York State. The New York State, during the Corona time, which I could still remember, but it feels like a distant dream now, they developed the Excelsior Pass. And the Excelsior Pass was allowing New Yorkers to digitally store and verify their negative COVID-19 test results. So instead of having paper records, they had this on a QR code on their phone, which was logged on a public blockchain. And that ensured that they had ownership of their details, of their COVID-19 results. So no public or private organization held those details. So you don't have your rights violated. So it's empowering the people. It's recreating trust between the public, the government, and different organizations. There are other things like identities, the BMW group, with your driver's license, creating traceability through the supply chain of that driving license. You can track, has that been issued already? Where has it been issued? Where has it been used? There's things like data sharing with other parties. Louis Vuitton, Prada, and some other luxury brands created the Aura blockchain. And that is to reduce counterfeit items, right? And create that traceability of those items. Therefore, if that bag has been made in, 2022, you can trace the traceability of that bag and then have authenticity. It's rebuilding trust in the brand. The other one I want to talk about here is JICA, into the Japan International Corporation Agency, or JICA. It's a blockchain-based supply chain system, and it's helping to promote school attendance and prevent child labor on cocoa farms. It's doing that by incentivizing farmers to not take on child labor, and incentivizing the schools to increase school attendance, right? And it's through that blockchain, or the entry of blockchain through a token, that those children are then showing up to schools, and they're creating that traceability, so that the JICA can then invest their funding and money into a good cause. So the questions for you are you discussing strategies such as tokenizations, smart contracts, collaborations, partnerships, crossing those boundaries, creating ecosystems, integrations, supply chains? For instance, there's opportunities like in batteries. I know at Deloitte we've created a project, or we've done a project where in a battery you have an RFID tag, and you can track that battery all the way through its life cycle, right? So you can see that in the supply chain. What stage is that? So it makes it very hard to then counterfeit that battery, and that is a genuine, authentic battery, right? So the other thing now is in the next, you used to use that old analogy, Pixar, it didn't happen. Now we have chain it, or it didn't happen. I've gone through most of the use cases here, but just as an addendum, you have digital identities, external data sharing, micropayments and transactions. You might have seen through things like cryptocurrency, but smart contracts, digital credentials, and provenance and traceability through supply chains. So that's it from me today. Short and sweet, but feel free to connect with me. I would love to talk about cloud governance, blockchain, decentralized architectures, all things that I'm interested in. And I appreciate you sharing and watching with me today.